This is Sporting Life.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Sporting Life Racing podcast. We've had a couple of weeks off, but we are back with a fresh panel. Dave Ord is away. He's been away in Ireland talking to Aidan O'Brien, etc. You might have heard a few of those tidbits last week, but I'm Ben Linfoot and I'm joined by Matt Brocklebank, Graham Cunningham, Billy Nash and special guest Joe Mason to look back on the action. We're going to look at some news lines as well and then ahead to York and economics and all the stuff that's happening this weekend. So welcome along, Joe. Thanks for joining us. How you doing?
Yeah, really good, thank you. Like I said, I've just rushed back from riding out, so I've just done the 6 lots this morning before doing this.
Well, I mean, that's a busy morning. Is that a usual one this time of year?
Usual. Yeah, we're quite quick lots really. So yeah, you can easily get from 6 to 8 lots out every day. So if I have to do that before I go racing.
Okay, but day off today, not riding today?
Yeah, not riding today. I've actually taken my second day of my whip ban, actually. First one I've ever got since the rules have come in. It was actually at York the other week on Valley of Flowers. I could just see Danny coming down my outside and I've just gone for that extra one to try and obviously win the race, and it was just the one over. So yeah, today off.
Did you know at the time
that I'd got one over? Everyone says to you, do you not count? I think you've got less things to worry about than counting when you've got so much going on, working out how your horse is going, where the horses are. But you kind of just know when you're on it and when you're over. So yeah, I did. But like I say, because I haven't been done for the stick, and it's something to do with how many rides you've had in between to like the days get lessened. So actually I only got the 2 days.
Joe, most riders seem to have adapted pretty well overall, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. Look, I think some of the rules were there anyway, giving the horse time to respond. It's just been obviously put into play. And I think going into it, obviously it's dropped down from 7 to 6. I think for me, it makes you ride your horse more, if that makes sense. You get everything out of it from pushing it before you resort to the stick. Yeah, that helps you on the way, but if your horse is good enough to be kind of in the first 4 and then if you're in contention, then you can kind of use it for that extra aid. But look, I obviously get a lot more. I'm not a stick happy person or anything like that. I only resort to it last minute. I try and get everything out of them from galvanizing them and pushing them and getting them into stride and in my hand before you resort to that.
And more than 50 winners already this year. You must be thrilled with that. Is that ahead of where you thought you'd be this year?
Yeah, definitely. I think I came into this year thinking if I can bet on my best season, which was 2022, I was on track for it last year, and I had a fractured ankle, so that kind of took me out for 2.5 months of the busiest part of the year. So I kind of said this year, if I can kind of stay injury free, beat my last year, which was 46 winners, and if I can get to 50, I'd be really happy for the year. And we're kind of only just into 7 months in, and I've got kind of 50 and beyond now on 52. So look, it's beyond what I could have imagined, especially turning a bit later in my career, really. Obviously, I rode as an amateur for a lot of years before turning professional due to COVID. So look, I'm delightful for that, and obviously the support I've had from a lot of trainers and the boss and my uncle as well.
Well, we're going to begin, Joe, by looking back on the Shergar Cup, because you were part of the winning ladies team at Ascot on Saturday. How was it? How do you like the day as a whole? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, I do really enjoy it. Look, that's my second appearance. I got a call up in 2022 when Holly had to go to Ireland, and again this year when Safi had to go to Haydock. So it was a late call up, but look, I'm absolutely delighted to be part of the girls' team. Look, I think people have got their differences about it. Is it because it's something a little bit different? But does it entice the crowd a bit more? I don't know. There seem to be a lot of spectators there, a lot of a young crowd. Look, I think probably the band after stuff I think helps. But look, I think it was a really good day. Sorry about the cat in the background. She's been very needy. It's a bit of a different day. Look, you kind of put on your horses, and it's done by some sort of algorithm. Giving everyone kind of a best chance. people have always got their say about it, haven't they? But look, it ended up being a brilliant day. Obviously, we were going into the last race in 4th position, but kind of looking at the points, we weren't too far behind. And me, Hayley, and Marie were like, I think if we get a 1-2 in this final race and Europe don't come anywhere, I think we might get it. And obviously we realised that we were going to actually get a 1-2, and you know, my horse probably didn't help that it was hanging quite badly left-handed, and I probably should have changed my stick over earlier on in the straight, but it got too late that if I had changed it over, I was just going to totally wipe her out. So my main aim was to kind of keep the motion going forward and try and galvanise him and get him going forward, to obviously just get pipped on the line. But you know, it was brilliant. It was Hayley, and obviously it meant that it was a 1-2, and that again we'd led the fight for the final standing. So no, it's a brilliant team morale.
What did you say to each other as you passed the line? I saw you look over.
I was a bit like, feck's sake, who is it? And then obviously, you know, until, because it was on the nod, you know, I think before and after I'd probably still have it. It was just on the nod. But look, I probably hindered her really a bit as well, looking towards the kind of the canter back in there. But look, it's one of those things, like I say, as much as it's a team event, it's not a team event, as in, you know, you're still riding your own horses to get your best possible positions. And obviously the team points, you know, kind of make themselves up, and it makes itself up along the day.
And Joe, there were other female riders, weren't there, in other teams? That strikes me as a good idea, one that's been overlooked in the past. Yeah,
definitely. Look, obviously is normally only a female team. I think it was quite good to have a 50-50 split. So obviously we've had Rachel King over, and a bit of a throwback actually. I used to ride point to pointing with Rachel as an amateur, and obviously a bit on the flat as well. And then obviously she went to Australia, so that was a bit of a throwback. But yeah, no, it was brilliant to see her, and obviously the girl from Hong Kong and the girl Rachel from South Africa. She was obviously the only female in there, so she even said it was kind of in obviously her changing room, there's only her. So then when there was all of us as well, she was like, God, I really enjoy actually being around, you know, a lot more girls. But it was brilliant to see a 50-50 split with the girls. And it just shows you that the stereotype of girls riding and boys, that it's kind of going out the window. If you look at all the results, the girls won the majority of the races.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it was all but two races.
And 5 times now the winning team on 5 occasions. I think there's only had a girls team since 2012, and obviously we missed 2020 as well. So yeah. Yeah, no, it's brilliant to see, and you know, hopefully I think showing kind of people who look down on a bit of girls, whatever, that actually, you know, we are jockeys, we're equal to the males. You know, it's not about strength and whatever. It's about having a racing brain, where to be, what horse you're on, and being in the right place. So yeah, no, it's brilliant. It's brilliant to see so many, you know, girls coming through as well.
Yeah, another winning day for the girls at the Shergar Cup. GC, we had Group 1 action at the weekend as well in the Phoenix Stakes with Babouche beating the odds-on favourite Whistle Jacket.
Beautiful segue from the female riders to the female horses, and the 2-year-old fillies look stacked this year. And everything about that Babouche performance suggests it's pretty high class. Time looked very strong. Pace was solid from the start. Beat a very good 2-year-old in Whistle Jacket, who may have just gone slightly too hard. But I heard earlier in the season that Joe Lyons had 2 fillies that he was mad keen on, extremely keen on. This was one, and is it Red Letter, the other one, the Frankel filly, Billy? And they both look highly promising, even without the Aidan O'Brien posse, which we'll come to in a minute. What do you make of Babouche, Billy?
I think she's very good, GC. I said it last week. You know, she's been really progressive. She was very impressive the first day, but she had to do it slightly differently in the Anglesey, where she really had to battle. And again at the weekend, she was very good at the weekend. I mean, it was like you touched on, it was a very fast time. The fastest Phoenix Stakes this century, according to Graham North, and only the second one under a minute and 10 seconds since 2000. Now, there are reasons for that. The conditions were very fast at the Curragh. There was a bit of a tailwind, but at the same time, those times stack up. She ran to a figure of 112p, backed up by the time figure. That puts her second on the time form list at the moment. Bedtime Story is our top-rated 2-year-old. with 116p, and you've Babouche and Fairy Godmother both 112. So these fillies look really good this year. You'd Lake Victoria as well, who we'll touch on in a minute, winning the Sweet Solera. They look like a deep bunch, and she is definitely one of the best of them. I like the way she relaxed at the weekend. She's from the family of Zarinsk, who Ger has done so well with, so you would expect she'll definitely get 7 furlongs. Good chance she'll get a mile next year, and if she continues to relax the way she did at the weekend, then she should get a mile next year. So I think the future is very bright for her.
While we're on Ireland, Billy, what about this January, who won the listed Churchill Stakes at Tipperary on Friday, the longest trip she's tackled and the best that she's looked? Yeah,
another one of the fillies that, you know, taking on the Colts and beating the Colts in a listed race at Tipperary. She's probably not the best of the Aidan O'Brien ones, but she is a progressive filly. She had been third in a Group 2 at the Curragh the time before, the early stud stakes, to a stable companion, Truly Enchanting. But every start, she has looked like a filly that would appreciate a step up to 7 furlongs. It was an extended 7 at Tipperary. It's nearly 7.5. And yeah, she looked better the further she went, to be honest. Won well at the end. She ran to a time form figure, she ran to a rating of 96p, which puts her a little bit off the top. But as I said, she is progressing. She's by Kingman. You definitely think she'll get a mile. And even though Aidan has plenty of options in those races, she's one that you can see contesting some of those better fillies races between now and the end of the year.
And Matt, Billy alluded to it, Aidan O'Brien, interesting that he brought Lake Victoria over to Newmarket for the Sweet Solera Stakes. She did it in good style.
There's plenty of them to slot in, isn't there? And obviously this was a viable option. She comes in only sort of third in with the with time form ratings in terms of the O'Brien 2-year-old fillies this season. A strong bunch, as Billy says. Bit below those mentioned already. 107p with time form. I guess she could just be anything, this filly, couldn't she? She's actually out of the Group 1 winner, Quiet Reflection. Her earlier offspring have been by Galileo. This one's a daughter of Frankel, and she's really shaping up into a smart 2-year-old. She's professional, isn't she? I like that, but has genuine scope, seemingly. I think she beat... She'd actually beat, the other Frankel filly you mentioned there, Red Letter GC. That was in a good maiden at the Curragh. That was won by Yalang the year before. Discoveries as well in the past. Obviously a good maiden, that, I think. And she took a good jump up. She had the run of the race, I suppose you would say, at Newmarket, but she was enthusiastic. She picked up when asked, and she was very strong at the line. And I guess off we go into Group 1 company at some stage, presumably. And I wonder if this might be one they take to the Breeders' Cup, but I suppose that's all going to come out in the wash in the fullness of time.
And what about this Tabiti, Matt? I mean, obviously Babouche in the Juddmonte Farm Silks, but Tabiti as well for Rafe Beckett. On debut, well backed and did it really nicely.
Yeah, but obviously Babouche, Red Letter, and Tabiti beat another Juddmonte filly here in Zanzoon. This was it was a debut, but it was a newcomer's 7 furlong maiden, so it's not like any of them had experience, but she did it well again from a prominent position on the front fairly early on. She had Rockfell. Group 2, that is, and the fillies mile entries. This strongly suggests, obviously, this kind of performance wasn't totally unexpected. It was nice to see from a time-wise. You mentioned Graham North's column there. It was really quite good. She actually covered the final furlong fractionally quicker than Lake Victoria did in her group race, and overall it was only a 1/10 of a second slower. So yeah, the form unknown, but the time stacks up very well, and she looks a very promising filly as well.
That is
I'll make a couple of quick points on Lake Victoria. I think she was Frankel's 100th group winner in pretty quick fire time. Telly pictures can be deceptive, but she looked absolutely twice the size of the runner-up Mountain Breeze. So she looks physically the sort who are really gone. And the other jockey angle, it was quite nice to see Sean Levy getting a big chance for Coolmore and Ballydoyle in a big race in Britain. So it was a significant race on several levels, that I thought.
Yeah, that sums up the domestic action nicely at the weekend. But there was plenty going on in Europe as well. The Prix Jacques Lemoir and Sharon Joe. He has stepped out of Paddington Shadow this year in tremendous style. Really established himself as the dominant older mile. He was impressive, wasn't he?
Yeah, really, really impressive. watching it back, really, it kind of looks like he only kind of just gets going and pulls away. Looks like he probably could stay further really in time, but he's done that so impressively. He's had a busy time, and even Roger Varian was, kind of lost for words with it, really. Really impressive.
And in Spiral, I mean, she lost lengths at the start before running on well, but it seems she's a tricky ride, whether you're Frankie Dettori, Kieran Schumacher or Ryan Moore. She's just got her own ideas about the game sometimes. Yeah,
exactly. Look, fillies can be a bit of a handful like that. And like you say, it doesn't matter whether you're, like you say, you're Ryan Moore or you're anyone else. Like I say, it's kind of coming back to the maybe the article that Racing Post put in, and, coming out on Kieran Schumacher, he's a very good jockey. I couldn't knock him one bit. I would, if I could ride like him, I would love to. Obviously you've got to have the horses behind you. I know obviously people have kind of commented after that rise. I think was it Matt Chapman kind of said something, is Ryan Moore sacked now? But look, she is a tricky ride, and obviously she didn't help herself there, being slow away, and then you're always on the back foot. You've always got to do the hard work. You've always got to do chasing. She then had to try and come down the outside to get a run, and look, horses aren't easy. They're not robots, are they? There's so many outside factors that can happen, slow away or the ground, but like obviously I say, she didn't really help herself there, being slow away.
An interesting point on in Spiral, Ben. She's out of a filly called Starscope, who John Gosden trained as well. She was a talented filly, but she was nowhere near as good as Inspiral was. But she was quite temperamental, and she seemed to get worse as her career went on. She was definitely more temperamental at 4 than she was at 3. And I just wonder, is Inspiral possibly going down the same route? Is she just... Possibly has she had enough of racing, She had a busy campaign last year, and is it just starting to take its toll? Will they try something different next time? Will they maybe try sticking headgear on her or something? But clearly she's not the filly she was last year. She hasn't got to within 8 pounds of her peak time form rating of last year this year yet. So, something's going to have to change with her.
Yeah, and that was the slowest start yet from her, wasn't it? She has been tardy multiple times, but that was the slowest one yet. So big question for Sharon's the complete opposite, isn't he? Dead straightforward, very uncomplicated. And on a broader point, who would have thought at the start of the season, let's say before the Doncaster Mile, that 3 of the maybe top 5 horses on ratings in Europe at this point would be Sharon, who was a good horse, but not a major star last year, Audience, who I had pegged as a sort of Group 2 squiggle merchant, and Goliath, who no one had really even heard of. So it's been a surprise season among the older horses in various respects, hasn't it?
Yeah, that Lockinge form where Audience beat Charin has worked out pretty well as the season's gone on, hasn't it?
Yeah,
Looked dodgy at the time, but
we all thought it was a suspect. Joe, what about Sylvester? Sylvester coming back and having a major star on his hands. That's been a big boost for him, that horse, hasn't it?
A massive boost for him. Look, he's knocking in the winners, and it gives you confidence when you're riding a good horse like that, and he's taking you back to the big days, and getting, obviously he's had to get going again as such, get rise back again. But when you've got a nice horse like that, you can't complain. I'd love it.
The other end of that story, obviously, is you'll have been there countless times, Joe, but seeing a horse like this progress, imagine how David Egan's feeling. I think he rode him 6 times last year. The horse was 0 from 7 in 2023, and then to see him coming out and turn into this Group 1 machine, you just don't know where they're coming from, do you?
You don't at all, and sometimes horses need time, from one year to another. They, got to strengthen up, and sometimes they need a bit of time, and they can be a totally different horse the next season. They've just grown into themselves. They've kind of just grown up a bit more, and the pennies can drop. Pen doesn't drop all the time with them. It takes quite a few runs to get, but obviously strengthened up, and like you say, it's just been unstoppable this time, hasn't it? So yeah, sometimes it's a bit gutting because then you're like, God, I blooming rode that, and I couldn't. But obviously, like I say, strengthened up, and what a time for Sylvester to have such a nice horse like that, and the sky's the limits, really, isn't it?
And we need to see Sharon versus Notable Speech and/or Rosallion now. Is Rosallion in or out for the rest of the season? Has that been confirmed?
I think they'll still try to get him to the QE2, aren't they? Champions Day.
Adam Stable are very quiet at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah, it could be a hell of a race that, though, if all those turn up, like you say. And talking about pennies dropping, GC, what about this Al Riffer, who won the Grosser Pre von Berlin?
Well, multiple angles on this story. First of all of a sudden, that coral eclipse form is looking much better than it did at the time. Al Riffa winning handsomely, not as handsomely as the judge thought in Germany. See the Fire, pretty well beaten in the coral eclipse, went very close in the Nassau Stakes, Group 1. So maybe City of Troy achieved a fair bit more on Eclipse Day than we thought. Billy Nash, that judge in Ireland who often gets the distances wrong, as he moved to Germany, he gave 5 lengths and 4.5 for that. A German Group 1, one of their biggest races. Have a look at the video. I wouldn't like him to cut me a carpet if he thinks that was 5 lengths and 4.5. It was more like 3.5 and 3.5. And these things matter. Ratings are built on this. Stallion reputations are built on these distances. And it's a joke to think that that was 5 and 4.5. That aside, Al Riffa, first time at 1.5 miles, was really, really decisive. And maybe this angle has gone underreported, or maybe I've missed it in the Racing Post, etc. Do you know who's going to ride this horse in the Arc? Dylan Brown McMonagle has been getting on really, really well with him. Billy, I'll put it to you. Have a think of the colours, the Broom colours, etc. The leading Japanese owner. There's a very famous Japanese jockey who's never won the Arc and got slaughtered about 30 years ago for his ride on White Muzzle. I tip my hat to David Morgan of idlehorse.com, who has reported, and he's a pretty canny operator, David, that Yutaka Take will ride Al Riffa in the Arc, that the owner is a massive friend of the rider, and he says that Take's dream is my dream, and that therefore Take will be riding Al Riffa in the Arc de Triomphe. That's an interesting news line that I think has crept under most radars. Idlehorse.com, if you want to check it out.
Unfortunately for Yutaka Take, I said it here a couple of weeks ago, GC, that Al Riffa wouldn't win the Arc, and I stand over that. So Yutaka's going to have to wait till next year, I think, to win it.
Good news line there, GC, and we're going to tackle a few news lines now. Billy, I'm going to come to you because this story in Ireland, the top Irish jumps trainers considering legal action following this initiative, which prevents them from running horses in 60 races, I think, next year. What's your take on this?
This is a really interesting one, Ben. I thought when I heard this first that it was just rumours that, that you sometimes hear on the racecourse that they were going to take legal action, but there does seem to be legs to this story. And I even heard it on the radio news bulletin this morning, the sports bulletin. It was one of the lead stories that the 4 Irish trainers are considering taking legal action against the HRI. So it looks like it could well happen. If it does, let's assume that it does, and let's assume that they win, because they wouldn't take this legal action unless they thought they had a good chance of winning the case, surely. If they do win, what knock-on repercussions is this going to have for racing? Because if their case seems to be that they're, being restricted in trading, basically, in what they can do, what races they can run in, what repercussions is that going to have for racing? All of a sudden, are you not going to be able to have races confined to apprentices? Are you not going to be able to have races confined to amateur jockeys? This didn't seem to be this. It happens in Ireland already, Ben. There's 17 races as things stand in the calendar that are restricted to trainers that hadn't trained a certain amount of winners. Obviously, they wanted to expand it to 60. This clearly hasn't sat well with the big 4 trainers who are being. It's just 4 trainers that are being excluded. So yeah, they have. It's a very interesting point. I'm surprised that they're thinking of going down the legal route. We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. There are ways and means around this. You could certainly circumnavigate the rules here if you wanted to, but they seem not to want to do that. Interestingly, I have heard other trainers talking about, now this is a small sample size, it's only a couple of trainers, Noel Meade being one at Galway last week, who was opposed to these rules. He said that he doesn't think there's any need for them, and he doesn't agree with trainers being restricted. So now the Irish Trainers Association clearly had to vote on this. They agreed this with the HRI, so there must be the majority of the trainers are happy with this. But clearly it's something that's going to run and run. And I wonder if a compromise will go. Like, nobody wants to go down the legal route, surely. I wonder if there'll be some sort of a compromise. But it's very interesting to see what's going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Billy, it's a really bad look for the 4 trainers, yeah. I think.
Desperate.
It's just over 1,500 jumps races a year in Ireland. Those 4 trainers that you mentioned, Mullins, Elliott, de Bromhead and Cromwell, last season won 41.5%. Over 4 in every 10, those 4 trainers win, and they are griping and grudging and threatening to go to the courts about not being able to contest something slightly over 1 race a week.
Yeah.
The numbers themselves are damning for these trainers, and as you say, the ripples from if they were to win would have potential ramifications for all sorts of different races. And the courts are notoriously reluctant to get involved in the doings of sporting bodies, and I think they'd toss this myself. I think they would toss this if it went to court. But lads, look at the numbers. You're already winning 41.5% of the races in the entire calendar between you, and you're griping around a little over 1 race a week. Come on.
Yeah, I wonder if nothing will come of that in the end, and it's just a bit of scaremongering almost from the trainers.
It should be. Matt, if we had a really, really healthy, well-regulated sport, trainers would be limited to, let's say, 100 horses per barn. That'll never happen because we don't have a strong, decisive governing body. But it would be a much more healthy, competitive sport with more chances given around to talented people, rather than everyone just herding off to 3 or 4 trainers because they think they're getting a massive advantage there.
We are halfway through the podcast, and this is normally where I go to myself to interview Oisin Murphy. I'm not speaking to Oisin this week. We couldn't get it in time, but I am speaking to him on Thursday for a video about all sorts of things. But GC's been in the news again. Oisin, obviously, he's just ridden 100 winners for the season. He's long odds on in the Jockeys Championship, but then he's reported to BHA head office after failing to arrive at Kempton on Monday, where due to provide a breath sample. Obviously, he's come out and said he's had health issues. What do you make of this story?
Yeah, well, I can leave aside that, the people on social media who just fire in with their judgment, and I can talk about this more generally rather than specifically from my own experience. And here's what I can tell you: certain 3 or 4 key points that. If you're in any way close to a person who has an addiction or a drink problem, you're worried about them, right? And then, as many do, they return to what seems to be normal. They return to being very, very high achievers. You're still worried about them. And then at some point, if they bail on an engagement, an appointment, a date or whatever, you really, really start to worry about them. And then if that day happens to be the day they're going to be tested at work, then you get really, really scared. Fortunately, in this instance, it seems that a very plausible explanation has come up. And when that happens, if you're close to that person, you are absolutely thrilled and delighted and elated. And therefore, you can be a little bit jokey about it. And piles is a very, very funny subject if it's not you. So you can joke about it. So put it on the poll, Ben. Which member of the panel this week, this does not include you, Joe, has ever suffered from piles?
I don't know. Any comment, Joe?
Look, people obviously they've got the past and obviously whatnot with Oisin, but look, he's come back strong. Hopefully you think he's learned from that. I don't know him well enough to know anything background or anything like that. But the fact he's had to come out and say something like that is, a bit embarrassing for himself. As in, I wouldn't like to announce to the rest of the the world that I've got piles and
you don't have to.
But it felt like he's had to.
Joel, this is a safe space. You can reveal anything like that.
I'd like to say I'm too young, but
on Zoom there's a facility to put one's hand up. I think a little emoji, isn't there? Scoop's done it just now.
But look, the fact that he's had to come out and actually say it to prove the reason why he wasn't there, it's a shame because people have always got their opinions, haven't they? And it's a shame on that. Like I say, I wouldn't like to come out and say that.
On a serious point, the BHA are right to follow this up because they are trying to safeguard an entire profession of jockeys, not just one. They're trying to protect the safety of everyone riding on any given day. So they're absolutely right to follow it up.
They are. No, they're definitely right to follow up. you know, if there was on the list and you're down to be tested, you know, they're following the rules. They've got to do what they've got to do. It's not protected just at him. It's like you say, they are doing what they have to do, which, like you say, is to safeguard the sport.
Well, let's have a look at some of the upcoming action now. And Matt, we have got the return at last. It's been 3 months since the Dante, but we've got the return of Economics on Thursday. He's running at Deauville in the Prix Guillaume Donano over a mile and a quarter. Looking forward to seeing him?
Very much so, yeah. In fact, the prices just came through actually on the email. I see he's been putting an odds-on favourite scoop, 10 to 11 with Paddy Power, and JRB, Brian Meehan's horse, the other Brit, going over for this is 4 to 1, 5 to 1, Bright Picture, 13 to 2, Al Makam. So, yeah, he's obviously expected to deliver the goods. Now, obviously, first thing to say is, you know, a layoff like this after a striking win, when returning with blood in the nostrils, is rarely by design, is it? And a lot now rests, I suppose, on William Haggas and those around him, and that, you know, the training talents to be able to bring him back up. And I suppose that's the key question, really, is how easy they've had to go on him in that intervening period to then bring him back up towards peak fitness and race fitness. Obviously, they've had options. They've had plenty of options, including now, with him being race ready, the Jubbont International. So that was clearly deemed unsuitable, and dare I say, is looking a bit hot anyway, given this horse's experience or lack thereof. But you know, maybe he will meet some of these Jubbont horses in the Champion Stakes if all goes to plan. So really looking forward to seeing him. The raw talent's obviously there, and it's a question now of whether they've got him back, whether he comes back a little shy of that sort of form that he showed in the Dante Stakes, whether he's bang on that or has progressed again since. These are the big questions going into it, and hopefully we'll get to see him win this and then go into the autumn as another potential starter lock horns with City of Troy and whoever else comes out of York, smelling of roses, I suppose.
This was the race that Ace Impact beat Al Riffer in 12 months ago. So yeah. It's got some strong recent pedigree, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's typical of William Haggas, isn't it, Billy, to adopt this patient approach with a horse like this. And although this is only a Group 2, he obviously looks like a horse that has the ability to go on and compete at the top level later in the season.
He's a hugely exciting horse, Scoop, and you know he looked so good in the Dante. It's a pity we haven't been able to see him through the summer, but as you say, William Haggas, you know, he'll have done everything with the horse's best interests at heart. So he's clearly happy with him now that he's got him to a place where he's ready to start again. He could have run at York a couple of weeks ago, and he just didn't think he had him ready there. So he must be happy with the horse, and hopefully he'll put on a bit of a show tomorrow, and that should lead to a very good end of season campaign. There's lots of big races open for him between now and the end of the year, so it'll be really nice to see him back on track first, and hopefully he puts on a good performance. It's not a cakewalk by any manner of means. There's some good opposition in there. Really interesting horse of Andre Fab's Bright Picture, who we don't know much about over here, but he's won 3 of his 4 in France, so it'll be a good test for him, and you know, it'll be really nice to see what he can achieve there.
Right then, it is Wednesday, August the 14th, and we are officially 1 week away from York. Really looking forward to the Sky Bet Ebor Festival, the Jubbont International, the feature race on the Wednesday. We've got the Nunthorpe, the Ebor as well. It's just a great week, and we'll look at York more in depth as we get closer to it. But we'll just throw a few thoughts around now. Joe, are you looking forward to it?
Yeah, look, I love the Sky Bet Ebor week, more so because I think York's just down the road, but it is such a fantastic race course. Look, they've put up some good prize money. It's exciting, brilliant racing, and it's just a brilliant week.
I mean, you'll be riding there, won't you? I know it's a bit early, but is there any sort of horse that you might be looking forward to in one of the handicaps or something?
Yeah, hopefully we've got a few entering there. It's always, you know, Grandad always loves to have a few runners there. Obviously, it's a bit more competitive racing for the Ebor week. I think Reach is going to go back for the race she won there last year. And I think we've got a couple in the Convivial, in the 2-year-old race. I think we've got 2 in there. I'm not 100% sure in some of the handicaps yet. Obviously, entries aren't out yet, but no, it's a hugely exciting week. Really looking forward to it.
Joe, when Reach won that Big Fillies handicap last year, you gained first run on Asheen Murphy on Sisyphus Strength. Was that your first Ebor Festival winner? And is it a different vibe, different atmosphere when you ride a big one there?
Yeah, it was my first Ebor Festival. Obviously, when I turned from being an amateur to professional, you know, obviously you had the ladies' races at York that I've won, but yeah, just the Ebor Festival, like the sheer amount of the crowd. You know, people do say, you know, in the finish, do you hear everything? Well, no, you've got tunnel vision. Your hearing senses are only kind of quite close in the proximity of the race rather than the people. But actually, when you pull up and you canter back in and you know, you're getting interviewed and then just the crowd around the paddock, it's something else there. It really is. So yeah, to ride, and obviously, you know, from growing up around here and around York, like the Ebor week is like the big week of the year for York. So to actually have a winner there, to have rides there is brilliant, but to have winners there and for it to be that filly, you know, I've got quite a good connection with her. You know, we've had some good races together, so to win, it was brilliant. And to see the smile on Grandad's face, that's always something.
Let's get down to the important stuff here. Let's have a proper appearance from the cat. I can see
there's two of them and they're blooming annoying.
Which one's this?
This is Mouse. She's the
male or female.
I actually saved them from the yard. So they were little kittens in the yard. So they weren't. So I got them, castrated them, and made them friendly. But I wouldn't be a cat person. I'm a dog person, really. But sadly, with all the miles that I do, it's not liable really for having them stuck in the car or the house. So at least they can look after themselves. But not when they bring presents into the house, and it is really annoying. Yeah. One has just brought a slug in.
How's Reach been going?
To show you.
How's Reach been going this year?
Yeah, she's been going well. She's been placed. I've been second and third on her. We always say she probably doesn't want too much rain. And the last day, it was on the softer side of good. She actually managed it better than I thought. I mean, I don't think I would have wanted it any softer. And the trouble is with the last run when I was third, I was kind of trapped in. I had Jason Hart on the winner come down my outside, and I just had to wait till he's got past before I can kind of pull out for a run. So I felt like I don't think I would have won. I think I could have been second. But look, she's been hugely consistent. You know, she's a mare that has her problems. We do wrap her in cotton wool. We can't do too much at home. So we get her to the race course. But look, you know, she's held her own. You know, she's on probably maybe she's dropped a couple of pounds from when she won from the Ebor week. But look, she's very much at the top of her mark. Have we seen the best of her? I'm not sure. But she's, like I say, she's hugely consistent.
Can I ask about one more very briefly, Joe?
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether the plan is to run, but a very lightly raced horse, a 3-year-old that won at the Dante meeting there in May. Diligent Resdev got absolutely no run at Goodwood from stall 58 or something.
Yes, yeah.
Could we maybe see him?
I'd love to. Like I say, I just got no run at Goodwood. I was drawn wide. I've had to jump out to ride a cold race because it was a weird race. Like they all jumped out, everyone stayed wide, no one was kind of going forward, getting in, and then once you get in, and it was messy around the bend. I got kind of cut up for room, and then, you know, I kind of was in the right place because I had the winner, and I think the winner and the second were just in front of me. But once I got the nose cut off me, I'd lost all my momentum. I'm not sure what his plan is actually. Probably to go for York, but like I say, he did that so nicely at York, didn't he? They went a good gallop, which suited him, which is obviously why we've kind of stepped him up to the mile. He did run in the Sky Bet Sunday Series at Thirsk. And at that meeting, nothing was coming from behind. And again, I was probably drawn a bit, not great that I've had to take a bit of a lead, but again, nothing was coming from behind. And then David said, I'd rather you just go for a clear run down the outside. And that probably wasn't the right thing to do either. So I do think we've not seen the best of him yet. And maybe that plan is to go to York. I've not fully coincided with David yet what entries were. But like he's a really nice, likeable horse.
Is he the Lee Westwood horse, Joe?
I think he's got a bit in him. Yes, he has. Yeah. And then the Resdiv, they've got a few horses with Mickey Hammond, and they've got a few with us now. And they're in it too. Yeah.
I'm sure plans from the Easterbies will formulate over the next week or so. Let's just touch on a few things at York. City of Troy, GC. I mean, you've mentioned his form already. He's odds on, isn't he? And it looks a hot Judmont. It's shaping up to be a really great race. Well, where do you stand with him?
At the moment, with the weather settled, looks quite settled, I'm hoping that he might be able to put on a show. Now, from a punting point of view, he's very, very tight. He's not got masses in hand on the ratings, I think, as Billy will confirm. But the fact that we have Calandagan and Zarakem, looks like they're going to come from France. Furezza from Japan makes it a proper international race. Alflela with that great York record. Ghostwriter coming back for another crack. But this is the day when City of Troy has to properly put his hand up. I thought he was excellent in the Derby when he just got into a beautiful flow. Excuses were offered and sort of slightly took the shine off that Eclipse performance, but it looks better than it did at the time. And York, big wide track, galloping track, fast ground, should be absolutely no excuses for City of Troy. So forget the punting for a moment. From a price point of view, if we've got a real champion this year, with all due respect to Sharon and Audience and Goliath, etc., it might just be him. And if it is him, he'll show it next Wednesday.
Yeah, Billy, he's been the poster boy of the flat season so far, really, hasn't he? Do you think, like GC, could really put in a statement performance?
York will really suit him, Ben. And hopefully, as GC said, the weather looks fairly settled. We should have fast ground, so he should have everything in his favour. I think the big open spaces and the flat track at York should really suit him. And he should have, it's all the ingredients are there for him to put up a really top performance. As we said, the Eclipse, even though we were kind of disappointed with him winning the Eclipse, it does look a little bit better now than it did at the time. There was possibly excuses for his performance. So I think we haven't seen the best of him yet, Ben. And I think if he is going to put on a real top performance, I think York is going to bring it out of him. He won't have it all his own way. Like you said, it's a wide open race. It'll be interesting to see what else actually takes him on. I don't know what the story with White Birch is, whether he's going to run or not, because he'd be a fascinating contender. But one of the problems with White Birch is he's trained by John Murphy, whose last winner was White Birch in the Tattersall's Gold Cup back in May. So it's been a tough season for John Murphy. He hasn't run as many as he normally would. Now, he has had a couple placed in recent times, but you would like to see the stable in slightly better form coming into a big race like this. But yeah, it has all the ingredients of being a really top race. It's potentially the best race to be run on the flat this year so far. And hopefully City of Troy can do what they keep telling us he's capable of doing. We haven't quite seen it on the track yet this year, but York might be the place where he can.
Matt, do you get the impression that Rafe Beckett's getting slightly tempted by the International for blue stocking?
For blue stocking? Yeah, I do. I really do. I think he's probably going to... on the back of that run in the King George, I don't think a sort of drying week would be an issue at all. I think they're quite happy to come away from that and think that she's now going to be capable of performing on decent ground. Interesting one is obviously she was put in a place by Goliath, and you can start seeing here that this Graffard has got a pretty good handle on the whole division, I would say, and they could easily have run Calandagan, or they'd had to have supplemented him into the King George. But the fact that he's been kept fresh, I think now, as we speak now, at 7-8 to 1, Calandagan each way is probably the bet. I'm not going to say that he's definitely going to go out and beat City of Troy, but these horses that are lingering like White Birch and King's Gambit and Blue Stocking, the race will cut up. We all know that it does happen, doesn't it? And the race will cut up. And I think if you get an each way three places about Calandagan, look, it wasn't a great race he won at the Royal Meeting, but it's probably the best winner of that race that we've seen. I thought that was a real sort of coming of age performance from a Geldinger, who is going to be restricted in terms of where he goes at the back end of the season. But I think he's banging in the right company here. He's not going to look out of place at all, is he?
I did put in the old running order for the podcast a horse from each of you for the York Ebor meeting. Did you all read that? And have you got one? That hasn't been mentioned.
Ebor itself, Scoop.
You can have one in the Ebor, Matt, if you want.
Yeah. Interesting. You mentioned Dave's trip to Ireland and hearing some of the interviews coming out of that. And obviously they've spoke to Dermot Weld about Harbour Wind. Now, this is a really fascinating horse, isn't it? And again, he's another one where you kind of think he's 10 to 1. And if he actually turns up here and doesn't run in the Lonsdale Cup and everything's kind of seemingly in his favour, you wouldn't imagine you'd be getting 10 to 1 about him on the day. But bigger prices, I was interested in Relentless Voyager. He ran another sort of sound race, didn't he, Al-Azi? He's probably not got a huge amount in hand, but the one I thought a sort of similar price, he's 14 to 1, I think, was Burdett Road. I actually think you might even get a bigger price closer to the time with this one. He's, on the face of it, that comeback run, he was quite a well-held 5th at Ascot, but I thought he was really quite promising that run. He's trained by James Owen. The word at the sort of midpoint in the season was sort of suggesting that they might come straight to the Ebor with Burdett Road, but he obviously needed a run, and it was quite a nice run, to be fair, over 1.5 miles at Ascot, staying on all the way. Sylvester de Souza, now fully acquainted with him. I'd like to see that partnership renewed, and yeah, I think he's got a big race in him. 1.5 miles is maybe sort of the maybe that's more his trip on the flat, but he was a good juvenile hurdler, wasn't he? Obviously, a lot of people listening might even be better, know him even better from his juvenile hurdle days, winning at Cheltenham and whatever. He had to miss the Triumph hurdle, but I think those juvenile hurdlers, they tend to end up as stayers, don't they? And 1 mile and 6 round York, I would imagine, is probably just about within his compass. I quite like him. Burdett Road, lightly race profile.
I've got a related contingency angle based on that blue stocking possible switcheroo. If they can happen to switch, Kalpana, the Judgmont, is it the Judgmont Yorkshire Oaks? I think it is, isn't it? Either way, Judgmont have blue stocking, who would be a very strong favourite for the Yorkshire Oaks. But if she switches, then Kalpana could carry the Judgmont colours, and she would not be anything like 16 to 1 if that were to happen. Now, I was a bit disappointed with her, to be frank, at Royal Ascot. I thought she'd win the Ribblesdale. She ran all right, but at Hamilton last time, albeit against lesser opposition than Group 1 level, she looked like a filly who's still improving. So she's the type of horse I think who could shorten appreciably in the betting for the Yorkshire Oaks.
Thames Network Yorkshire Oaks, GC, just looked it up.
Sorry?
Third Thames Network Yorkshire Oaks.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
That's a shame. That is a shame.
What about this Nunthorpe Stakes? Are we going to see another Aussie winner in Asphora? Hortensia, you remember her? She won at Goodwood and then won the Nunthorpe, an Aussie mare. Now this Asphora was slightly unlucky, I think, and she's going to be better off with Big Evs compared to Goodwood. She should just about reverse that form, and I think Machine Murphy could be in for a big week at York next week myself.
Yeah, absolutely. Any more York horses before we move on to the weekend from anyone?
Yeah, a couple of interesting ones on the Ebor scoop. Obviously, we don't know what's going to run in a lot of the other handicaps and even some of the better 2-year-old races yet. The Ebor looks fascinating this year, and I think there's a really strong Irish contingent going. Matt has already touched on Harbour Wind, who'd be fascinating, but he's got 109, which is a big rating to be lumping in an Ebor. Aidan seemed to be quite positive about Queenstown in his little piece with Fran and Dave Ord last week. Queenstown is a hard horse to get a handle on. He's chased home Kyprios on a couple of occasions this year, acting as his pacemaker in both races, but he's clearly very talented. Again, he's got 107. He mightn't have a massive amount. Well, it's hard to know exactly how much he has in hand from that sort of mark, but he's a very interesting contender. But there's 2 other ones that I really like. Again, from last week's piece, when Ordy and Fran were on their holidays and touring around Ireland, they did a very interesting piece with Willie Mullins, and I thought he was really interesting about a horse called Hip Hop de Loire, who we don't know much about over here. He got him from Europe. He's 1.5 miles listed, or 1.75 miles listed winner at Hoppegarden, and has also been placed on a number of occasions in listed company on the continent. He's had 1 run since he joined Willie. That was at the Galway Festival last week, where he finished 2nd in the maiden hurdle to another of Willie's, a horse called Jack Finbar, who will possibly reoppose him in the Ebor. But I just thought Willie was particularly positive about the chances of Hip Hop de Loire. Thinks he's on a good mark, and let's face it, he knows what it takes to win an Ebor. But the other one that I think is really intriguing if she does go there is Henry de Bromhead's Magical Zoe. A little bit like Matt's angle with Burdett Road. This filly is probably better known as a hurdle horse. She was 3rd or 4th in the county hurdle this year off a mark of 144. She's had a few runs on the flat this year. She comes in here off a mark of 102. I think she'd be very interesting off that sort of mark. 1.6 miles on the flat should be okay for her. She's a filly that travels really well. I think she'd just about get away with it. I wouldn't put anybody off her at an each way price if she does turn up there.
I think significant. Just looking back, sorry guys. Ireland have won, I think, 7 of the last 14 Ebors. That's a
good
very
record,
punchy strike rate, isn't it?
Yeah, £500,000 put up, GC, and they're all over it out there, the Irish.
I was just going to mention, sorry,
8 of the top 10.
Probably worth mentioning, just on the Willie Mullins piece, obviously positive about the other two, but we should probably mention that he was fairly negative on Bellocchio even turning up if it was sort of quick ground. So he's priced up as certainly one of the favourites at the time of recording anyway. So don't be back in
Billy,
that.
I wanted to ask Billy one quickie. A news line that was, well, I didn't see much of it last week. That Crystal Black won again. Was it Leopardstown last week?
Yeah, really impressive.
Is a proper Melbourne Cup story in the making, that, isn't it?
It's been an absolute revelation since he joined Jerry Keane. They sourced him out of Dermot Wells, and he has just turned into a winning machine for them. You know, he won a couple of valuable handicaps up the Curragh last year. This season, he's 4 from 4. He won at Royal Ascot, gave them a huge day out at Royal Ascot, and came and won the Ballyroan, his first time in a pattern race at Leopardstown last week. It was only a 4-runner race, but he went and won well. He's only had 2 runs at 1.5 miles. He did most of his racing in his early days at 7 furlongs and a mile, and even last year, I think he won the Irish Cambridgeshire over a mile at the Curragh. So he's a horse that just seems to have progressed. Stepping up in trip this year has, if anything, improved him, because he relaxes so well through his races, it doesn't seem to bother him. And now, obviously, the fact that if he could finish in the first 3 in the Ballyroan, it almost guarantees him a place in the Melbourne Cup. You know, they have a fairly defined ballot system for the Melbourne Cup, but the fact that he could finish in the first 3 in a group race is a big help. And he went and won it by 4 or 5 lengths. So he's very much on the up. You know, he seems to have a lot of the attributes you'd look for in a Melbourne Cup horse, in that he has early speed, he'll handle fast ground, he relaxes well through his race, so hopefully he'll get the trip. But he's going to give them a great, he'll give them great fun if they do go down there. We saw how much of a kick they got out of the win at Royal Ascot. Imagine what they do if they won the Melbourne Cup. So yeah, onwards and upwards for him, and he's a horse certainly to take very seriously if he goes down there.
Yeah, Crystal Black, a fantastic story. Hopefully he does make the Melbourne Cup, and really looking forward to York next week. We'll be back next week with more in-depth thoughts on the action on the Knavesmire. Right, then we're going to finish with just a quick look ahead to the weekend. Joe, where are you this weekend? Are you riding at Ripon?
Yeah, I think I'll just quickly put a thing, because when you all just go from day to day. So yeah, I'm Thirsk Friday, Ripon Saturday, I think, by the time I've dropped up, and then obviously it's the Sky Bet Sunday series on Sunday at Pontefract. So
the final one, Joe. It's the final series. How's it gone for you at the Sunday series meetings this year? Because there's some decent prize money there, isn't there, as well?
Yeah, brilliant prize money. A bit quiet. I had a few early doors, and then when they've had the other meeting, and like I say, probably this might be my second or third one that win. But we've got a few entries, and I'm dropped up on a few. So actually a few good chances, and we could try and get the leading rider. That would be really good. But cross fingers. Like I say, they do a really good job there putting up the prize money, and it makes for very competitive racing.
You had a cracking time a few years back, didn't you, on the Sunday circuit, as it were? Yeah.
Yeah, Yorkshire Lady, she won 2 of the races. I think it was then that they didn't have the kind of win for three races, and she won 2 of them. And actually, she's had a bit of time off. And actually, I rode her the other day up at Ayr. She ran a really good race. She was 3rd after 6 months off. Had a bit of a niggle, so that meant she had to have the time off after a hurdle win. But I have a feeling they're going to steal me off her and take her hurdling, really. But no, she had a brilliant run back, showed her what we're capable of. She was probably a bit disappointing on the flat, really, before she went hurdling. So showed what we kind of knew she had, and she's a bit of the apple of my eye as well, her and Reach. So that was a really good run back, and she's sure to come on for that run after 6 months off as well. So she was a standout one in the Sky Bet Sunday series a couple of years back, and yeah.
And is the St Wilfred winner lurking in the yard, Joe, again, somewhere?
Oh God, you'd never know, would you?
There used to be etched all over the Roll of Honour of the St Wilfred. I was hoping that there might be something in line.
Coming out of the woodwork. Oh God, you would never know.
Correct answer.
They might pop up.
Is there any of those that you're looking forward to riding on this weekend, Joe? The Chicago Gals been in good form, and
yeah, she's been in really good form. Whether the run just came a bit too quick when I rode her at Leicester, whether she doesn't just quite stay 1.5 miles on soft ground, but she won well enough at Beverley. Casilli, again, I've won quite a few on her. She had a bit of time off, and she obviously had a second run back of the season. And she was second, so I think she's back to kind of form again, which is the horse that we know. She runs on Sunday, I think. And I've got a nice one, When Moon, for Ben Haslam. He's not been out, I think, the first 3 in the last 5 starts. Actually, I think I was third on him at Pontefract, so likes the track. Went to York and looked very unlucky in running. And that's on Sunday as well. Now I've got a nice book of rides. I'm not complaining.
Yeah, we've been back in When Moon all season, haven't we, Matt? When we were at Pontefract in April.
Not quite getting the head in front. It probably the trouble is I don't think he helps himself because he does look left-handed. But like I say, I say
a bit of rain maybe as well.
Yeah.
Does he want a bit softer scoop?
Probably. As I say, has he got a bit of form on softer ground? Yeah.
Has anyone else got any weekend fancies before we wrap it up?
No, I'm on holiday until York starts.
Okay, that sounds like a good answer.
I'll mention Zabriskie Point very quickly, Scoop. Another one that, like Joe mentioned at Goodwood, drawn 16 of 16, I think he was, and ran quite well in the circumstances. Finished 5th. He's entered in the 3 o'clock at Newbury in a 7 furlong handicap. He's very lightly raced this season. He's only had the 2 starts. He was value bet on his comeback. Took a chance on him in that, the big 3-year-old sprint handicap at the July Festival. But he was just far too fresh and keen that day, but he just settled a bit better last time, tucked him in from the wide draw and came home nicely. So could be the time to strike. He's been dropped another £1 or 2.
Okay, we'll look out for Zabriskie Point.
Ben and Matt, how's York, the Ebor Festival been for you tipping-wise over the years? Is it one you find tough, or is it...
Sonny Boy Liston GC stands out in recent years. That was a good day.
Yeah, I find York tough, full stop. I mean, it's a tricky track. I think it's because it's so competitive and the massive fields, and it's great. It's great fun. I wouldn't claim to have a great record there, but it's great fun. I think it was a few years ago.
The Dante to the Ebor meeting, you get this, like Cruyff Turn and horses like that. There's a good pattern to those races and intentions of really having these horses revved up for York meetings, as Joe has so elegantly put earlier on.
Sometimes you see a start and you think that has taken me aback. Did you know? I think on the at the races website last night, George Bowie has never trained a winner at York.
Yeah, I saw that. It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah. He said he's almost given up trying, but he's running believing. He's running believing in the Nunthorpe because it's a Group 1. But that was something that really surprised me.
Yeah. It'd be some way to break that stat, wouldn't it? Winning the Nunthorpe.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
We shall see. Something to look out for next week. Well, time has beaten us, but thank you to Matt, GC, Billy, and special guest Joe. Great to have you, Joe. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week to chat about all things York, and good luck with your bets if you're having a go this weekend.
Download the Sporting Life app for the best racing coverage, including live racing blogs, fast results, stable tours, trainer and jockey interviews, expert opinion and tips.